Okay, St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, and we're now back to the second segment of our program. When we left off, Dominic was making some comments about the traffic flow from Canada in particular, but in general, and I will ask him to continue.
Yes. No, I was simply making the point that it takes a while to build confidence in the route or a destination. So the most difficult and expensive part would be when you make an initial investment. So for example, there was talk of Copa Airlines coming in.
Right.
That will be a very significant and expensive undertaking at this time.
Yeah.
But as the route builds confidence, then you would see that
it would pay for itself.
It would pay for itself over a time.
Correct.
So the MRGs that you would have to pay, or the minimum revenue guarantees that you would have to pay for the airline to ensure that the route is profitable,
yes,
that would decline as the route continues to perform, as the trade, as all of the marketing people, the distributors and the agents and so on are now understanding the dynamics of the route better. And so you would have to, it would be the likely thing for you to be spending a lot more when you've got to make that investment. But it was bold and we're benefiting now. You know, tourism policy don't just come overnight.
You know,
so you don't just come into a country and say, well, we've implemented this policy, and all of a sudden, look at that.
Yeah, it's very sad, St. Lucia, because, you know, I know that most governments tend to do the same thing, is that when one government gets in, they seem to decry another. But it's only fair that when something is done right, the people should get some form of credit. I distinctly remember when Alan became Minister of Tourism, there were a maximum of 4 flights a day on a Sunday. And by the time he left, there were either 8 or 9 flights a day. Now, there's no question about the fact that the tourist board has worked well, and they have continued the good work that was done. But what I think is so unfair is that certain members of government, I heard it recently, making comparison that the last government spent X million dollars and bringing planes here, and they're only spending. But what they have done, they have benefited from the work that was done by the United Workers' Party, and they have actually stopped, and as Dominic, investing further. They did bring in, I think, a flight United from Philadelphia or somewhere, which is good. Although I support that kind of business, but by the same token, I said it more than once, but I suppose people listen and do what they want at the end of the day. When American Eagle was coming here, in their heyday, there were 7 flights a day, okay? It went down to 3 or 4 flights, but it was important to have it, and I've told the Prime Minister, and I've told various members of government, that there's an airline known as Seabourn, which replaced American Eagle, and they are 40-seater planes. They go to every island nearly except St. Lucia, and they would be willing to come to St. Lucia, and I think it's another area they need to explore, because that would help the economy of George Charles Airport significantly, plus the fact there are many people who want to go to Puerto Rico to shop, and they have to go all kind of funny routes to be able to get there, which is so unfair. But then, you know, that is the decision for government, and everybody has their own way of running the industry. But I think it's only fair that the powers that be should understand that try to knock people. It's all well and good making all the insinuations about what was done, but they're not there. It reminds me of a man buying a sandwich. He takes out the ham and he leaves the bread. But that's for another time. So on that,
I don't believe that some of the aspersions you've heard about the policies that were implemented between 2006 and 11, especially as it relates to the marketing of the tourist board. In 2006, it was 25 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. It ran an average of about 50 million between the years of 2006 and 2011. I think the first year, because we were still recovering from the crisis as well and the crash that hit the world, it went down to about 45 million. So more or less the policy has been kept. And now it's in the region of $41 million. So it has not gone back to where it used to be, because it's not possible. We're living in a different environment. We're living in a competitive environment, and you've got to spend money to market the destination, and I think that that's actually,
you know, a perfect example, Dominic, and you should be aware of, is what just happened in Grenada. I went down to Grenada with Mr. Stewart before they built the Sandals. I saw the airport was completely empty, and I'm told recently that by a hotelier that this is the first time in how many years they don't have to pay any more to bring an airline into Grenada, because the critical mass is now there to a certain extent. Is that correct?
That is correct. So that would now bring and lend to the destination the confidence that the airline industry is looking for, that there is now a reputable brand that is promoting not only itself but also the destination, most importantly.
Right.
And then as well, that brand is bringing quality room stock. So Grenada had 225 new rooms. On the back of that, you also saw other investors and other properties upgrading their facilities. So you had like the Spice Island property owned by Royston Hopkins, who's done a phenomenal job, great Caribbean hotelier. And he as well was able to raise the standards because of the impetus of new investment coming into the destination, and a surge in confidence from the tour operators and the travel trade.
Yeah. Right. Now, what we have to look at now, apart from that's putting tourism on the one side of our program, now I want to try to address the economic situation in St. Lucia. You know, I know the world was in a recession, but you know, St. Lucia in particular has contracted for 3 years. It is now said by ECLAC that there could be a 0.3% growth this year, and which still leaves St. Lucia at the bottom of the rung as far as the economic. And something has to be wrong, Dominic. What do you think is the cause of all of that?
I think that when we look at the last budget, it's really a reflection of what hasn't worked and what we continue to do wrong. We continue to fund social projects, continue to fund infrastructural projects, and expect that there'll be a growth and a rebound and a resurgence in the economy.
And these things don't bring about that.
What bring about sustainable growth is the productive sectors. So we've got tourism is our opportunity. The social economic review actually shows that agriculture, in the banana industry, where we were actually in pre-Hurricane Thomas years. I'm not talking about in the days of Sir John when you had the preferences and the EU gave you preferential treatment. I'm talking about just before 2010. The social economic review shows that we were producing 40,000 tons of bananas and upwards. Okay, now we're doing 8,000 tons. 8,000? 8,000 tons. Wow. So 1/5 of what we were doing, 20% of what we were doing. Farmers are now complaining that as a result of that, the Windfresh, which is the organization which is responsible for marketing and distribution and shipping of the bananas, is buying bananas from Dominican Republic and other South American jurisdictions to supplement that. But now that the farmers are slowly rebounding,
they're not buying it.
Windfresh is not able to buy their product at the level. So they have a quota system which is limiting the farmers' opportunity to grow and to grow money.
But tell me something, Dominic. How long will it take for, say, Windfresh to reduce on what he's buying from South America and the Dominican Republic and come back to St. Lucia? As far as you know, I'm not too familiar with that. Do you know?
Well, I'm not quite sure how long it will take, but I know that this situation is untenable when you've got farmers producing and they're losing hundreds of boxes of bananas.
Because you know something, I only learned of that a month ago because I had someone on my program who brought it to my attention. But just recently I was in Barbados and I met an ex-employee of mine who has a small ship, and he told me he's been coming to St. Lucia for the last 3-4 years, going to Vieux-Fort, and taking about 100 tons of bananas every Monday morning, that stuff they left behind. And I couldn't believe that. I said, but how can you be leaving stuff behind when I know that we can't meet our quota? So, and it was when I asked that question, I was told what you're just telling me. And this is terrible because any government who has a conscience should at least go out and check what we're saying there and do something and speak to Windfresh about it, because this is unacceptable. How do you expect the farmers to survive?
That's correct, but what it's also doing, it's not encouraging to the farmers' confidence.
Correct.
And it is also making them very insecure about their own lives, their ability to send their kids to school, their future, pay their mortgages, take care of their farms, and that's why you have more and more farmers abandoning the farms. Now, I think that in in historic time, historically we've had trouble with farmers not holding their end of the bargain, to be fair to any government.
Yes, right.
But I think by now we should know who the good farmers are. And in those good farmers, we have to invest. We've got to stimulate their economy. So out of the 414 million that was borrowed for the budget, in the capital expenditure of the budget, I think that a significant part of that should have gone, at least some of that should have gone towards the rebuilding of the agriculture industry. And when I said this on a previous show, a friend of mine called me and said, oh, this is normal politicking. This is what politicians say. They go after the farmers. But this is an economic argument because we're losing millions of dollars that could potentially go back into the rural economies, that could potentially go to the hands of ordinary people, that could potentially
and help the unemployment situation.
situation.
I'll tell you, Dominic, besides the banana industry, the Hotel Chocolat Group have been persisting for years that we should grow cocoa. They even were willing to get the trees in for us. I mean, this is crazy. And also, even recently, I heard that they've developed a way where they can stimulate the growth of coconuts, and which we could probably go back into that industry. We have an oil factory doing nothing here, where we're producing a lot of stuff before. So these are two areas, which is the banana, well, three areas: the bananas, the cocoa, and the coconuts. But farmers, it is not our intention to cause any problem or any real upheaval in St. Lucia. But I think whoever is listening to this program in the agriculture sector should definitely arrange a meeting with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Agriculture to follow up what we're saying today, because this is your livelihood we're talking about. This is your future we're talking about. So, I mean, you have to live like everybody else. For years and years I've heard people say, oh, that Sir John Compton gave the farmers too many facilities. I disagree with that argument. I think Sir John was right, because it's an incentive. That's an incentive. And when people get incentives, that's what helps them, because in turn, you all people are the ones taking care of the unemployment, bringing in the foreign exchange, because when you export, you get foreign exchange. We have a lot more to discuss on that subject, and this is Open Mics. We've just come to the end of the second segment of our program. Thank you.